Okay, now off into the third theme, which is partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I've asked you in various ways how you guys can strengthen the trust of the community and transparency, opening up dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
just, showing the humanity
Mm-hmm.
behind the badge.
Mm-hmm.
Are you open to a town hall meeting request being submitted if a certain neighborhood or community wishes to speak to you about important issues that affect their community?
The thing is, what I've said is I will be open and available to our communities to talk. The town halls and things, those are things that go on now. I've been a Rotary, Kiwanis, HOAs. If you put in a formal request to have me and say, hey, tell me what the scope of the meeting is, I don't have an issue coming out and talking with the citizens who elected me. I think, once again, that's a part of the office. That's a part of the requirements of fulfilling this office, is being available for your citizens.
Awesome. And we can't hear that enough. So.
Yes, yes.
And Sheriff Johnson, as a black man and a police officer, are you criticized on how you handle certain situations that have to do maybe with a black person, maybe a police officer being accused of shooting a black officer? Are you criticized by your community? Is it something that does that bother you if it does happen?
I think what being black and policing does is offer a different perspective that I know is valuable to each and every law enforcement agency across the nation. The reason why you're seeing, people say, hey, we need to force the diversity. We want qualified. We want you to meet our standards, but we need diversity, because my upbringing was different than my white counterparts, different than my Hispanic counterparts or my Asian counterparts. So we've seen things through a different light. But when we all come together to talk about these issues, my perspective, your perspective, her perspective, we can then start bouncing ideas off, and through ideas, through communication, comes building, comes growth. And that means when you go into the communities and start handling situations, you tap into that, information that you got from those conversations, and you handle the situation differently, because hey, when I go over here, this guy was just talking loud, he was loud and stuff. Man, black folks just loud sometimes, and that's okay, but you don't know what you don't know. But when we're in the room to discuss it, I think better outcomes happen. And that's why the push for diversity is so, so important. And I know that's what I've offered to the agencies that I've worked for. And I've seen officers and heard from them say, hey, I appreciate you being here on this call, because I didn't see it that way. And my background, my upbringing, allowed a different perspective, which the call was handled differently. And,
it definitely speaks to the day and age we're in by you being elected,
Mm-hmm.
It's not only is it cool to see and encouraging to see,
Yes, sir.
but it's one of the things for me that it reminds me that there's still good people out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's still good people who look at things unbiasedly
Mm-hmm.
and just look at it for what it is, right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be honest, I was very surprised when I heard you won.
Mm-hmm.
I was very surprised when I heard there was two black sheriffs running,
Mm-hmm.
and they were front runners.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, I wasn't, just because I go outside here all the time, and one of my best friends is a white guy.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Edmond,
Mm-hmm.
where I deal with all sorts of people, and in the midst of all this chaos, we still lived, and we still laughed, and we loved, and we did everything that we always did.
Well, I think what you're seeing and what you experienced is people always talk about the bad and the negative that went on in America, and we clearly identify it, we understand it, we saw it.
Sure.
But we're in a far better place now. When you brought up something there, the two finalists on either side of the aisle, both tickets, Republican and Democrat, were going to be a black man. Does that not show the progress that we have made over time?
In law enforcement.
And law enforcement. I mean, that is huge. And so not to identify that, I think you're really sliding all the good work and what good men and women have sacrificed before me. So I think that's something that really highlights the fact that we've come a long way.
Absolutely. And for Oklahoma specifically.
Oh, for Oklahoma, as a nation.